Good Monday to you with the Bill and Joel Morning Show, focusing on education. That's something that everybody talks about fixing, reforming, improving, but it doesn't seem like a whole lot gets done to move us in that direction. Now, given the activity that the current president has had in his first handful of weeks, I would say the better question is what will education reform look like under a Donald J. Trump presidency?
Good to have David Kim back with us, founder of C2 Education, and that's the nation's leading test prep, tutoring, and college counseling organization. David, nice to have you back with us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Bill and Joel.
Let's take it where Bill led into this. Where do you see education going in a Trump administration?
Well, I mean, the big thing that they're trying to push is this notion of vouchers, which is really, being able to provide low-income families with the choice of perhaps going to a private school, which is, causing a lot of anxiety with certain families right now.
With families or educators?
Uh,
Or unions?
Probably a mix of both. The idea of choice, I think, on paper, is always a good concept, right? We always want to, when we go to a grocery store, have the option of looking at 5 different toothpastes and picking the best one per our budget. And the idea that we could do the same with school has been touted to obviously make schools more competitive. And give parents the option of going to a school, that might be, better for, their child. The reality is, education is very complex. There are different needs that students have, whether you're in a very affluent neighborhood versus a less affluent neighborhood, kind of the needs and services really vary, which make it pretty complex. The other kind of coalition of folks that have kind of risen up against, kind of this idea of vouchers are those with special needs, which obviously requires a whole different set of resources, type of expertise that you won't necessarily find in a lot of private schools. And so, again, that's been another group that have really spoken out vocally against, the new education secretary.
Let me ask really quick on vouchers, and I'll let Bill get to his question. But, vouchers, there's so many angles on this. So I don't see this as a end-all solution, as a lot of people may be kind of hanging their hat on here, because what is a parent really looking at? I mean, because a student tests well out of school doesn't mean they're getting a good education, it just means they test well. Might be testing well on information they're getting to get to a college. Still doesn't mean they're getting a balanced, good education.
That's correct. Obviously, when a lot of parents are looking at schools and trying to determine, which one is the best one. Test scores is one thing they look at. They look at, whether or not they're going, to a 4-year college and whether they're graduating from that. So this whole, word called outcomes is really in vogue amongst educators and parents, kind of what are the outcomes and metrics from a particular school. But the reality is that, with the idea of vouchers, I think the biggest fear is that you're taking a limited amount of money and spreading it out amongst more schools, and so each school at the end of the day can theoretically actually get less money than they had before, and so the idea of kind of scale is being destroyed with kind of vouchers. I mean, there's kind of the opposite notion of vouchers, that we should kind of create and consolidate more of these schools so that we can pool resources to be able to provide, kind of more programs, more, different types of instructors and teachers, for students is kind of at the other end of the spectrum. So.
Our guest this morning is David Kim, founder of C2 Education. We're talking education reform and what might be as we move into a brand new presidential administration. Let's talk about that. A lot of folks have said that the Department of Education, maybe it's on a federal level, needs to go away or at least have some powers cut. What do you see happening as far as regulations are concerned on these systems?
Yes, I mean, the biggest thing that they do obviously is helping with schools for lower income families. So Title I, people who qualify for free school lunches. Students with disabilities is again an area where they have a huge impact and is an area of need that's probably pretty lacking, in the country as a whole. The other areas that they really focus on is student debt for higher education, and really controlling the purse strings on what's happening there, and then some of the things that happen in colleges and universities as it relates to kind of discrimination, in terms of Title IX and gender equality, are the big things that they directly impact. obviously the Department of Education provides a pretty big soapbox for them to opine on other areas, whether it's, the Common Core, which has been a huge headline, but really is not something that the Department of Education can really affect at the end of the day.
Common Core, a good thing, bad thing, and will it go away or be reshaped?
Again, kind of like vouchers. I mean, I think in theory, the idea of having standards, on paper is something that, we can all unequivocally agree upon. I think the way it was ruled out and the way the standards were written were kind of areas that were highly contentious, and it needs to kind of be addressed and strengthened, I would say, at the end of the day. So I think the idea of Common Core is great, but the implementation was poor, and so it's something that we should have a broader discussion about it at the end of the day.
Betsy DeVos is Education Secretary.
We'll see on Tuesday what happens. Clearly there's been a rising tide against kind of a lot of the president's nominees for a bunch of areas. In my opinion, I think her heart's in the right place, and she really wants to do what's right. There's definitely questions in terms of kind of her expertise and understanding of what the Department of Education does that has alarmed a few people. And I think if she's able to surround herself with the right people, she could do a great job. But if the president's intent is to kind of put kind of less competent individuals so that these organizations are less effective, that would be a bad, kind of decision to make for any of these cabinet positions that he's contemplating. But I do sincerely believe that Ms. DeVos's intentions are very good.
Got to get you back because I want to talk to you, and I think Bill would as well, but the future for profit colleges. I mean, we're seeing some things across the country work really well for some people in that arena now. Maybe less government, no government. I mean, a lot of questions we'd like to ask you. So we'll get you back and talk about those things later on. But what about people wanting to follow up on C2, find out how it might work for their kids? How do we do that?
Yeah, definitely visit our website. It's www.c2educate.com, and that's the letter C, number 2, EDUCATE. Again, we have a great blog. We have a lot of great advice, whether it's on college planning, financial aid, and everything else that relates to kind of your children at the end of the day.
David, always good to have you aboard. Thanks for your time this morning. We wish you the best, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.